The night is quiet. A gentle breeze moves across the wide waters of the Nile, barely disturbing its smooth surface. The stars shine softly above the dark land, just as they have for thousands of years. Along the riverbanks, the tall reeds sway with slow, patient movements, whispering to one another in the cool air before dawn. Most of the village is asleep. Inside small mud brick homes, families rest on woven reed mats spread across packed earth floors. The day's heat has finally faded. Clay jars filled with cool water stand against the walls. A few oil lamps have burned low, leaving only the faint smell of warm clay and old smoke lingering in the rooms. Outside, the world feels still. Far beyond the fields, somewhere in the darkness, a donkey shifts its weight. A dog lifts its head for only a moment before settling back into sleep. The river continues its endless journey toward the northern sea, never rushing, never slowing, carrying with it the quiet rhythm that has shaped countless generations. This is ancient Egypt. Not the Egypt of mighty kings or towering monuments, but the Egypt where almost everyone lived ordinary lives. Here, history moved one sunrise at a time. Days were measured not by great events but by growing crops, baking bread, repairing tools, and waiting patiently for the waters of the Nile to rise once again. Tonight, we follow one such life. His name is not written on temple walls. No statue remembers him. No grand inscription tells his story. Yet people like him filled this land. Without their careful hands, their steady work, and their quiet endurance, the great kingdom could never have existed. His story begins long before the first light touches the eastern sky. He sleeps beside his family in a modest home built from bricks shaped by hand from Nile mud mixed with chopped straw. The walls are thick enough to hold back much of yesterday's heat. The flat roof above is supported by wooden beams brought from distant places where larger trees can still be found. The room is simple. A basket of onions rests near the doorway. Bundles of dried reeds lean against one wall. Clay bowls sit stacked beside a grinding stone polished smooth by years of use. Every object has earned its place through daily necessity. Nothing here is made for decoration alone. Everything serves the quiet work of living. The farmer sleeps lightly. Years of early mornings have trained his body to wake before sunrise. Even while resting, he seems connected to the slow breathing of the land itself. Somewhere beyond the village, birds are already beginning to stir among the marshes. Soon the darkness will begin to soften. His wife wakes first. She sits quietly, careful not to disturb the children sleeping nearby. For a few moments she simply listens. The silence of the house tells her many things. The small fire has gone out completely. The wind outside remains gentle. No animals are causing trouble. It will be a peaceful morning. She reaches for two smooth stones used for grinding grain. Their familiar weight fits comfortably in her hands. Soon the slow, steady sound of stone against stone fills the room. It is one of the oldest sounds in Egypt. Every morning, in thousands of villages scattered beside the Nile, women begin their day in much the same way. Grain harvested months earlier becomes fine flour through patient effort. There are no shortcuts. The rhythm never changes. Forward. Back. Forward. Back. Slowly, the fragrance of fresh flour begins to fill the cool air. The farmer opens his eyes. For a few moments he remains still, adjusting to the fading darkness. Through the doorway he sees only faint outlines of the village beyond. He stretches carefully. Yesterday's work remains inside his muscles. His shoulders feel heavy. His hands are rough with hardened skin built over many seasons. Small cuts, old scars, and thick calluses cover his fingers. These hands know the land. They know the feeling of wet soil after the flood. They know dry earth cracking beneath the summer sun. They know rope, wood, reeds, grain, mud, water, and stone. Soon he stands. The packed earth beneath his bare feet feels cool after the night. He steps outside while the stars are still visible. The village slowly awakens around him. Another doorway opens nearby. Someone coughs. A child turns over in sleep. Across a narrow path, an elderly neighbor sweeps yesterday's dust away from his entrance using a bundle of reeds tied together. No one speaks loudly. Morning belongs to quiet voices. Above them, the sky begins changing almost too slowly to notice. Deep black becomes dark blue. Dark blue softens toward gray. The eastern horizon grows pale. The farmer walks toward the river carrying 2 empty clay jars suspended from a wooden pole balanced across his shoulders. The path feels familiar beneath his feet. He could almost walk it with closed eyes. Each morning the same stones wait in the same places. Each bend in the narrow trail leads toward the same gentle water. As he approaches the Nile, cool air rises from its surface. The smell is fresh. Clean water. Wet earth. Growing reeds. Rich mud carried from distant southern lands. Everything that lives here depends upon this river. Without it, there would be only desert stretching endlessly beneath the burning sun. He kneels carefully. The clay jar disappears beneath the surface with barely a sound. Ripples spread slowly across the water before fading again. Nearby, fishermen are already preparing their simple boats. They work without hurry. Nets are checked one last time. Wooden poles are lifted. Small bundles of food are placed carefully inside. Their day will follow the river while the farmers follows the fields. Both depend upon patience. The sun has still not appeared. Only its promise brightens the eastern sky. Returning home, the farmer passes fields resting quietly in the cool morning air. Soon they will be filled with voices. Soon sandals will press new footprints into soft soil. Soon oxen will pull wooden plows through damp ground. For now, everything waits. Back inside the house, flat rounds of bread bake against the warm inner walls of a clay oven. The smell fills every corner of the room. Breakfast is simple. Fresh bread. A few onions. Perhaps dates if the previous harvest was generous. Sometimes a little beer brewed from barley. The meal is not large. It does not need to be. There is much work ahead. The children wake slowly. The youngest rubs sleepy eyes while watching sunlight creep through the doorway. The oldest already understands the day's routine. Soon he too will help in the fields, learning each task by watching rather than through spoken instruction. Knowledge passes quietly between generations. No written lessons are needed. Hands teach hands. Eyes teach eyes. Outside, golden light finally reaches the tops of the date palms. Birdsong grows stronger. The village is fully awake now. Smoke rises gently from many homes. Donkeys begin carrying baskets. Goats wander between narrow paths. Neighbors greet one another with calm nods before disappearing toward another day of work. The farmer lifts his wooden hoe. The smooth handle has darkened from years of use. Every mark upon it tells part of its own history. He walks toward the fields beside other workers. No one rushes. The day is long. There is no need to hurry toward labor that will continue until evening. The earth beneath their sandals still holds moisture left by the river's flood months before. Tiny green shoots cover much of the land, promising future harvests if carefully tended. The work begins quietly. Weeds are pulled one by one. Small irrigation channels are cleared of silt. Loose soil is gathered gently around young plants. The farmer bends, stands, walks, bends again. The movements become almost like breathing. Slow, steady, unchanging. Above them, the sun climbs patiently into the pale Egyptian sky, warming the fields 1 gentle degree at a time. Before long, the cool comfort of morning will give way to the familiar weight of the day's heat, and the long rhythm of another ordinary day beside the Nile will continue, just as it has for countless seasons before. The morning grows brighter without ever feeling hurried. The first warmth of the sun settles gently across the fields, touching the broad leaves of young plants and the narrow paths worn smooth by many feet. Dew disappears little by little, leaving behind the rich scent of damp earth. Tiny insects begin their quiet work among the reeds. Birds lift into the pale blue sky in small groups, circling above the river before disappearing toward distant marshes. The farmer continues moving through his field. Each step has a familiar purpose. He knows where the soil holds more moisture. He knows which patches of ground dry more quickly beneath the sun. He notices small changes that another person might never see. A single yellow leaf. A cracked edge of an irrigation channel. The faint tracks left by a wandering bird during the night. His attention is quiet. Nothing feels rushed. The land rewards patience more than speed. He pauses beside a narrow channel where water flows slowly from a larger canal connected to the Nile. The current is gentle enough that a floating reed moves only a short distance before catching against the muddy bank. He kneels. With both hands, he removes a few clumps of packed mud that have gathered overnight. The water immediately begins flowing more freely, spreading through the shallow trench toward rows of barley growing farther away. The sound is soft. Water touching earth. Water finding every small opening. Water disappearing into thirsty ground. It is one of the most comforting sounds in the valley. Around him, other farmers work in much the same way. Some are older, their backs slightly bent from decades beneath the Egyptian sun. Their movements are slower than they once were, but their experience guides every decision. They waste no effort. Others are younger. Their steps are quicker. Their shoulders carry fresh strength. They still learn by watching the older hands, copying each careful motion until it becomes natural. No one speaks very much. There is little need. The work itself seems to encourage silence. Occasionally someone points toward a damaged channel. Another nods in understanding. A quiet greeting passes between neighbors. Then everyone returns to the steady rhythm of the morning. Farther away, a pair of oxen pull a simple wooden plow through another field. The animals move slowly, their broad hooves pressing deep into the moist ground. Their breathing is calm. Small clouds of dark soil fold gently behind the plow blade. The farmer glances toward them only briefly. He knows those animals well. Strong oxen are valuable companions in a farming village. They ask for care every day, but they return that kindness through steady labor that no person alone could manage. As the sun climbs higher, light begins reflecting from the river with greater brightness. The Nile appears almost silver now. Fishing boats drift quietly across its surface. From this distance they seem to move without effort, floating between patches of tall reeds where white birds stand perfectly still, waiting patiently for fish beneath the water. The breeze carries many scents across the fields. Fresh mud. Growing grain. Warm straw. The faint sweetness of flowering plants. Smoke rising from cooking fires back in the village. Together they create the smell of ordinary life. A smell that has changed very little through countless generations. The farmer straightens slowly, placing both hands against the small of his back for a moment. The muscles there ache. Not sharply. Simply with the familiar heaviness that comes from years of bending toward the earth. He takes a slow drink from a clay jar resting beneath the shade of a small tree. The water is pleasantly cool. Tiny droplets gather along the outside of the porous clay where the morning air touches it. He drinks without hurry. Every sip feels valuable. Nearby, another worker smiles quietly. Neither says much. They have known each other since childhood. They grew up chasing one another along these same irrigation channels, long before either could lift a hoe or guide an ox through the fields. Now both have families. Both have weathered hands. Both rise before dawn each morning. Time has changed many things while leaving the rhythm of the land almost exactly the same. The village itself rests only a short walk away. Its flat-roofed houses stand close together, their mud brick walls glowing softly beneath the strengthening sunlight. Narrow lanes wind between homes, creating pockets of welcome shade even as the day grows warmer. Inside one house, an elderly grandmother shapes fresh dough into flat rounds. Her hands move almost without thought. She has repeated these motions thousands upon thousands of times. A small child watches from nearby. The flour dust floating through the sunlight catches his attention more than the bread itself. He reaches toward the tiny white particles dancing in the air. The old woman smiles gently. She says nothing. Some moments need no words. Across the lane, another family repairs woven baskets. A broken reed is removed. A new one is carefully threaded into place. Each basket will carry grain, vegetables, or fish before the day is finished. Nothing useful is thrown away if it can still be repaired. Wood is valuable. Reeds require time to gather. Even worn rope is saved for another purpose. Every object lives many lives before finally returning to the earth. Near the edge of the village, a potter begins shaping wet clay. His wheel turns slowly beneath practiced hands. The cool clay rises little by little into the shape of a water jar. His fingers leave gentle marks along its surface before smoothing them away. The vessel seems to appear almost by itself. Nearby, dozens of finished pots wait in the morning sun, drying before they will be fired inside a hot kiln. Some are large enough to store grain for many months. Others are small enough for cooking oil or fragrant herbs. Each one will soon become part of another family's daily life. Nothing about the work feels hurried. Everything follows its own quiet pace. Back in the fields, the farmer resumes his labor. The sun now sits higher above the horizon. Its warmth begins pressing gently against his shoulders. The coolness of dawn has faded. The familiar heat of Egypt slowly takes its place. Sweat gathers across his forehead. His simple linen clothing clings lightly to his skin. Still he continues. There is comfort in repetition. Lift the hoe. Turn the soil. Clear the weeds. Smooth the channel. Step forward. Begin again. Hour after hour. The rhythm settles deeply into both body and mind. Sometimes his thoughts wander. He remembers helping his own father many years ago. Back then, the wooden hoe had seemed impossibly heavy. His father never scolded him for working slowly. Instead, he simply worked beside him. The lesson came through quiet example. Strong hands were not built in a single season. They grew little by little, just as crops did. The memory brings a peaceful feeling. His father is gone now. His tools remain. Many of them still serve the family every day. A polished wooden handle. A carefully shaped blade. A woven basket strengthened many times over. Each carries the touch of hands no longer present. Yet those hands are remembered each morning through ordinary work. Above, the sky has become a deep and endless blue. Clouds are rare here. The sunlight falls cleanly across the valley. Palm trees cast narrow shadows that slowly shift across the ground. In the distance, children laugh for a few moments while chasing one another beside the river. Their voices drift across the fields before fading into the warm air. Soon enough, they too will join the work of the village. For now, childhood still belongs to them. The farmer smiles softly without looking up. The sound reminds him of mornings long ago. A small flock of ducks passes through a shallow pond left by the annual flood. Their gentle quacking mixes with the rustling reeds. Dragonflies hover above the still water. Tiny fish ripple the surface now and then. Life fills every corner of the river valley. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Simply and steadily. As midday approaches, workers begin gathering beneath scattered trees wherever shade can be found. The farmer carries his small meal wrapped inside a linen cloth. Fresh bread. A few onions. Some dried figs saved carefully from the previous harvest. A little beer poured into a simple clay cup. The meal is modest. No one expects more. Food is appreciated not because it is rich, but because it restores strength. They eat slowly. No one rushes through the quiet break. Some close their eyes for a few moments, listening to leaves moving gently overhead. Others stretch tired legs. A few speak softly about the coming harvest, hoping the river will rise kindly again when the season returns. Their conversation is calm. No one raises a voice. The shade feels wonderfully cool compared with the bright fields waiting beyond it. The farmer leans against the rough trunk of the tree. He watches sunlight shimmer across distant canals where the water continues its endless journey through the valley. Somewhere beyond those fields, beyond the villages, beyond the temples and the great cities, the Nile flows on exactly as it always has. Patient. Steady. Never asking for praise. Only continuing its quiet work, season after season, carrying life through ancient Egypt one gentle current at a time. The quiet meal beneath the shade comes to its gentle end. For a little while, no one is eager to stand. The cool shadow beneath the tree offers a welcome rest from the growing warmth of the afternoon. The breeze moves softly through the date palms, carrying with it the faint rustle of dry leaves high above. The farmer sits with his hands resting loosely upon his knees. His breathing is slow. The sounds around him seem to settle into a peaceful rhythm of their own. Somewhere nearby, an insect hums steadily among the grasses. A dove calls from the branches of a sycamore fig tree. Beyond the fields, the Nile continues its quiet journey, its distant waters almost blending with the silence itself. The afternoon still has many hours remaining. There is no thought of finishing early. The work of the land follows the sun, and the sun is only halfway across the sky. After one final drink of cool water, the farmers rise together. They brush loose dust from their linen garments and return to the fields without hurry. Their footsteps press gently into the soft earth beside the irrigation channels, leaving fresh prints that tomorrow's sandals will partly cover. The farmer picks up his wooden hoe once again. The smooth handle feels warm now beneath his palm. It has absorbed the morning sunlight, just as it has done through many seasons before. He resumes his familiar rhythm. Lift. Turn. Smooth. Step. Lift again. Nothing about the movement feels forced. His body has learned these motions so completely that they seem almost as natural as breathing. His thoughts drift quietly while his hands continue their steady work. The barley has grown well this season. The stalks are still green, moving gently whenever the breeze crosses the valley. In a few months they will become heavy with grain, their color changing little by little from green to soft gold beneath the Egyptian sun. He imagines that future morning. The harvest will bring long days. Whole families will work together from sunrise until evening. Sickles will sweep through the fields. Bundles of grain will be tied carefully with woven straw. Children will gather fallen stalks while older workers carry larger loads towards storage buildings. But that time has not yet arrived. Today belongs to quieter work. Today is for patience. He kneels beside another narrow irrigation channel. A thin layer of fine silt has settled across the bottom since the previous day. The rich black mud is smooth beneath his fingers as he clears the passage. This mud has traveled a very long way. Far to the south, beyond places he has never seen, heavy rains have fallen among distant hills. Those waters have carried tiny pieces of fertile earth into the Nile, where they have floated northward for many weeks before finally reaching these peaceful fields. He has never traveled there. He has heard stories from merchants. They speak of distant lands filled with unfamiliar trees, strange animals, and mountains rising high above the river. To him, those places seem almost like dreams. His own world is here. The village. The fields. The river. The changing seasons. They are enough. As the water begins flowing freely once more, sunlight dances across its surface. Small fish dart quickly through the shallow channel before disappearing beneath floating leaves. A frog slips quietly into deeper water. Nothing seems disturbed by the farmer's presence. The creatures of the valley have shared these fields with people for countless generations. Nearby, another farmer pauses to adjust the yoke across his shoulders. Two woven baskets hang from either side, filled with freshly cut reeds gathered near the marshes. The reeds will dry in the sun before being woven into sleeping mats, roof coverings, baskets, and simple fences. Very little goes unused in the village. The reeds growing beside the Nile serve many purposes. Some become fishing traps. Some become sandals. Others become pens for writing upon sheets of papyrus. Even the smallest pieces may help start a cooking fire. The farmer watches for only a moment before returning to his work. The afternoon light grows softer without becoming cooler. Heat rises gently from the ground, making the distant fields shimmer ever so slightly. The air smells of warm earth and growing grain. It is a scent so familiar that few villagers even notice it. For them, this is simply the smell of home. Farther along the field, a young boy works beside his grandfather. The boy cannot be more than 10 years old. His hoe is smaller than the others. His hands are still smooth. Every few minutes he looks toward the older man, quietly copying the movements he sees. The grandfather rarely speaks. When he does, his voice remains calm and gentle. He points toward a patch of weeds. The boy nods. Soon both return to working side by side beneath the bright afternoon sky. Learning here happens through watching. Words are few. Examples are many. The farmer remembers those same lessons from his own childhood. His father had once shown him how to judge the depth of water inside an irrigation channel with nothing more than a glance. He had taught him which clouds, though rare, sometimes carried welcome rain. He had explained how to listen to the wind moving through barley, noticing whether the stalks were healthy or weakened. Such knowledge could never fit inside a scroll. It lived inside careful observation. It passed from one pair of hands to another. The hours continue their slow journey. The shadows begin stretching longer across the fields. Palm trees cast graceful patterns over the narrow paths. Birds become more active again now that the fiercest warmth has begun to fade. A flock of white egrets settles near the marshes, standing quietly among the reeds. The farmer wipes his brow with the edge of his linen cloth. Sweat has left tiny lines through the fine dust covering his face. His shoulders ache pleasantly. His hands feel heavy. There is satisfaction in honest tiredness. Each task completed leaves the field a little stronger. Each cleared channel helps carry water where it is needed. Each hour of effort adds quietly to the coming harvest. He pauses beside a cluster of date palms. High above, ripe dates hang in heavy bunches beneath wide green leaves. A worker carefully climbs the rough trunk using a rope looped around both himself and the tree. His movements are slow and practiced. There is no wasted motion. At the top, he begins lowering baskets filled with fruit. The sweet smell of fresh dates drifts downward on the breeze. Children waiting below gather the baskets with eager but careful hands. Some of the fruit will be eaten fresh. Some will be dried beneath the sun. Some will be stored for many months, providing welcome sweetness during quieter seasons. The farmer smiles softly. Dates have always been among his favorite foods. Not because they are rare. Because they remind him of family evenings after long days of work. His mother had often placed a small bowl of dates beside fresh bread as darkness settled over the village. The memory returns with surprising clarity. He can almost hear her gentle voice. Almost smell warm bread cooling beside the clay oven. Almost feel the evening breeze entering through the doorway of the old family home. The memory brings comfort rather than sadness. Life moves forward as steadily as the Nile itself. Children become parents. Parents become grandparents. The fields remain. The river continues flowing. The sun rises. The sun sets. The seasons return again and again. As the afternoon slowly begins leaning toward evening, activity along the river increases. Fishing boats make their way home. Their simple sails catch the softer breeze now drifting across the water. Some boats carry baskets filled with tilapia and catfish. Others return with only modest catches. The fishermen accept both outcomes with quiet patience. The river gives generously some days. On other days it asks them simply to return tomorrow. Along the muddy banks, women fill clay jars with fresh water for the evening meal. Children splash gently near the shoreline under careful eyes. An elderly man repairs a fishing net, tying each knot slowly with fingers that have practiced the same work for decades. Nearby, a potter washes clay from his hands before closing his workshop for the day. His freshly shaped jars stand in neat rows, drying peacefully in the warm light. The village itself seems to breathe with the changing hour. Smoke begins rising from cooking fires once more. The pleasant scent of baking bread drifts through narrow streets. Goats wander back toward their simple pens. Donkeys carrying empty baskets return from the fields with tired but steady steps. The farmer looks toward the village. Soon he too will begin walking home. His body feels pleasantly worn from the day's labor. His sandals carry a thin layer of black Nile mud. Dust clings to the hem of his linen garment. His hands are rough. His shoulders are sore. Yet there is quiet contentment within him. The fields have been cared for. The water flows well. Tomorrow there will be more work. There is always more work. But for now, the afternoon is slowly giving itself to evening, and the golden light of the lowering sun spreads gently across the valley, wrapping the fields, the palms, the quiet river, and the humble homes of ancient Egypt in a peaceful glow that invites every weary worker to begin the slow walk home. The farmer begins the slow walk back toward the village. The sun hangs lower in the western sky now, no longer bright enough to make him squint. Its light has softened into warm shades of gold and amber, spreading gently across the fields. Every stalk of barley catches a little of that light, turning the broad valley into a quiet sea that seems to move with every passing breeze. His footsteps are unhurried. There is no reason to rush home. The work for today has been finished as well as it could be. The earth has received its care. The irrigation channels carry water where it is needed. The young crops stand quietly beneath the evening sky, asking for nothing more until another sunrise. Around him, other workers make the same journey. Some walk alone. Some travel beside brothers, neighbors, or lifelong friends. Their conversations are soft, often separated by long moments of comfortable silence. No one feels the need to fill every step with words. The shared labor of the day has already spoken for them. A pair of oxen passes slowly along the dusty path. Their broad shoulders carry a simple wooden yoke polished smooth by years of use. Their breathing is slow and steady. Small clouds of dust rise beneath their heavy hooves before settling gently back upon the road. The farmer reaches out for a moment and pats one of the animals along its neck. Its skin is warm beneath his hand. The ox barely turns its head. It knows the familiar touch. The village grows closer with every step. Mud brick homes catch the evening light, their walls glowing softly like warm clay fresh from the potter's kiln. Palm trees rise above the rooftops, their leaves whispering together whenever the breeze passes through. Children are still outside. The youngest run barefoot along the narrow lanes, laughing quietly as they chase one another around stacks of woven baskets and water jars. Their laughter carries through the warm air without disturbing its peace. Older children have already begun helping their families. One girl carefully gathers kindling for the evening fire. A boy carries a small bundle of reeds balanced carefully across his shoulders. Neither complains. These small tasks have become part of everyday life. Little by little, they are learning what it means to belong to the village. Near one doorway, an elderly woman sits upon a low stool weaving fresh reeds into a sleeping mat. Her hands move with remarkable confidence. Each reed slips into place beside another. The pattern grows slowly. She hardly looks down. Years of practice guide her fingers more than her eyes. Beside her rests a clay bowl filled with freshly cut palm fibers that will strengthen the finished mat. Nothing about the work is hurried. She has all evening. Across the lane, two young men repair a wooden cart. One holds the wheel steady while the other carefully fits a new wooden peg into its place using a smooth stone as a hammer. The sound is gentle. Wood against wood. Stone against peg. Soft echoes drift between the houses before disappearing into the warm evening air. The farmer pauses briefly beside the village well. Several women have gathered there with clay jars balanced skillfully upon their heads or resting against their hips. They speak quietly while waiting their turn. Their conversation moves easily from one subject to another. Someone asks about an elderly neighbor who has not been feeling well. Another mentions that her youngest son has begun helping in the fields. A third smiles while describing the first tiny green shoots appearing in her family's garden. Their voices remain calm. Even ordinary conversation seems slower here, shaped by lives that follow the steady rhythm of the river rather than the passing of hours. The farmer lifts one of the heavier jars onto a neighbor's shoulder. She thanks him with a warm smile. No more words are needed. Simple kindness is woven naturally into daily life. He continues toward his home. The familiar doorway comes into view. The walls have been repaired many times over the years. Fresh patches of mud plaster stand beside older sections weathered by countless seasons of wind and sun. The roof is flat, built from wooden beams covered with reeds and packed earth. During the hottest nights of summer, the family sometimes sleeps there beneath the open sky, where cool breezes drift across the village after sunset. His youngest child notices him first. The little boy runs across the small courtyard with quick, eager steps. The farmer kneels despite the stiffness in his knees. Small arms wrap around his neck. For a moment, the weariness of the day seems lighter. His wife steps outside carrying a shallow basket filled with freshly ground flour. She smiles quietly. The look upon her face is peaceful. Neither asks many questions. They already understand how the day has gone. His dusty clothing tells enough of the story. He removes his sandals near the doorway. A thin layer of dried mud has gathered along the straps. He brushes most of it away before placing them neatly beside the wall. Inside the house, the air feels pleasantly cool compared with the warmth outside. The thick mud brick walls have held much of the day's heat at bay. Light enters through the doorway and a small opening high near the roof, painting gentle shapes upon the floor. The room smells comforting. Fresh bread. Warm grain. Dry herbs hanging from wooden pegs. A little smoke from the clay oven. The faint scent of onions stored in woven baskets. These familiar smells have greeted him every evening for many years. They always make the house feel like a place of rest. His wife kneads the fresh dough one final time before shaping it into flat rounds. Her hands press gently into the soft mixture. She dusts each loaf with a little flour before placing it against the hot inner wall of the clay oven. Soon the bread begins to bake. Its rich aroma slowly fills the room. The children sit nearby. One watches the fire carefully, fascinated by the glowing embers beneath the bread. Another quietly peels onions for the evening meal. The oldest grinds a few herbs using a small stone mortar. Everyone contributes something. No task is considered too small. Outside, twilight spreads gently across the village. The bright blue sky begins fading into softer shades of violet and rose. Long shadows stretch between the houses. The evening breeze grows cooler with every passing moment. Birds return to their nests among the palms. The sounds of the village change almost without anyone noticing. The steady rhythm of work slowly gives way to quieter sounds. Cooking. Soft conversation. Footsteps returning home. The distant braying of donkeys settling into their shelters. A goat calling gently for its young. The crackle of small cooking fires. The farmer washes his hands using water poured carefully from a clay jar. The cool water feels refreshing against his rough skin. Fine dust washes away, revealing deep calluses earned through years of labor. His hands are strong. Not because they were born that way. Because each season has shaped them little by little. The family gathers for the evening meal. Fresh bread is broken by hand. Onions are shared. There are bowls of lentils cooked slowly over the fire. A little goat cheese rests upon a clay plate. Dates provide a touch of sweetness at the end of the meal. Simple food. Wholesome food. Food prepared with patience. No one eats quickly. The day's work has ended. There is time now. As darkness slowly deepens outside, the farmer listens to his children speak about the small events of their day. One proudly describes helping carry water from the river. Another talks about seeing a kingfisher dive into the reeds. The youngest simply enjoys telling the story, adding tiny details that grow with each sentence. The adults smile. These moments are as nourishing as the meal itself. After eating, the clay bowls are washed carefully. Nothing is wasted. The remaining bread is wrapped in linen for tomorrow morning. The fire inside the oven is allowed to settle into glowing coals. Outside, the first stars begin appearing overhead. One by one, they fill the sky above the Nile Valley. Without the light of cities, the heavens seem endless. The river reflects those distant stars with quiet grace, as though the sky itself has reached down to touch the water. Many villagers step outside before sleeping. Some sit upon their rooftops where the evening air is coolest. Others gather quietly with neighbors. An old man tells gentle stories that he once heard from his own grandfather. They are not stories of great battles or famous rulers. They are stories about the river, about the seasons, about families, about ordinary people who lived good and careful lives. The farmer leans back against the low wall surrounding his roof. The day's warmth slowly leaves the mud bricks beneath him. Above, the stars seem brighter than ever. A cool breeze carries the scent of the Nile across the sleeping fields. Somewhere in the distance, a fisherman guides his small boat home beneath the moonlight. Somewhere farther away, water slips quietly against the reeds, just as it did yesterday, and just as it will tomorrow. The farmer closes his eyes for a moment. His body feels heavy. His muscles ache in the familiar, comforting way that comes after honest work. Tomorrow will begin before sunrise once again. The grinding stones will sing their quiet song. The river will welcome the first water jars of the morning. The fields will wait patiently beneath the soft light of dawn. But those hours have not yet arrived. For now, ancient Egypt rests beneath a sky filled with silent stars, while the cool night breeze moves gently through the palms, carrying peace across the quiet village beside the timeless waters of the Nile. The night settles gently over the village. The warmth that filled the fields during the afternoon slowly drifts away, leaving behind cool air that moves quietly across the rooftops. The walls of the mud brick homes release the last of the day's heat a little at a time, making the evening comfortable after the long hours beneath the sun. The farmer remains seated on the flat roof of his home. His family is nearby. No one feels the need to speak often. The silence is kind. It is filled with familiar sounds that belong only to this hour. A breeze brushes through the fronds of the date palms. Somewhere beyond the houses, a donkey gives one quiet call before becoming still again. Farther away, hidden among the reeds, frogs begin their nightly chorus along the edge of the Nile. The sounds rise and fall without hurry. They have greeted the coming darkness for longer than anyone can remember. The youngest child slowly leans against his mother's shoulder. His eyelids grow heavier with every passing moment. He watches the stars for as long as he can, trying to count them one by one, but there are always more appearing above the valley. Soon he falls asleep. His breathing becomes slow and peaceful. His father smiles softly. Children often surrender to sleep before the adults do. The day asks much of them, even when their work is light. The farmer lifts his eyes toward the sky. He knows many of these stars. Not by written names, but by long familiarity. The heavens have guided travelers upon the river for generations. They have marked the passing seasons. They have quietly reminded every farmer that time moves steadily, whether the harvest is plentiful or modest. Above the eastern horizon, a bright star shines with unusual clarity. The old people of the village often watch for certain stars as signs that the annual flood will not be far away. The river has its own calendar. Its own quiet promises. Its own patient way of keeping time. The farmer cannot read the words written by scribes upon papyrus scrolls, but he reads the river well. He reads the wind. He reads the color of the soil. He notices the songs of birds returning at certain times each year. He understands the smell of fresh mud carried north from distant lands. These are the lessons his father taught him. These are the lessons he will one day leave for his own children. Eventually the family carries sleeping mats inside the house. Tonight the breeze is pleasant enough that they choose to sleep indoors, where the thick walls hold the coolness gathered after sunset. Oil lamps burn softly. Their small flames dance whenever the breeze finds its way through the doorway. The farmer carefully pinches one flame between damp fingers. Darkness gently fills that corner of the room. One by one, the other lamps are extinguished until only moonlight remains. Silver light enters through the doorway. It stretches quietly across the floor. Clay jars cast long shadows against the wall. The woven baskets seem almost like gentle hills beneath the pale light. Everyone settles onto their reed mats. The mats have been woven from reeds gathered beside the Nile many months earlier. They are firm but comfortable. A folded linen cloth serves as a pillow. Blankets are unnecessary during much of the year. The air remains mild even after midnight. Outside, the village slowly falls asleep. Conversations fade. Cooking fires become glowing embers. Footsteps disappear. Even the animals grow quiet. The farmer listens for a while before closing his eyes. He hears the distant splash of a fish breaking the surface of the river. A soft rustle of reeds. The steady chirping of insects hidden among the grasses. The world feels safe. Tomorrow's work can wait. Sleep comes naturally after a day spent in the fields. It arrives slowly. Kindly. Without effort. Long before dawn, the village still sleeps beneath a blanket of stars. The moon has crossed much of the sky. Its pale light rests gently upon the quiet river. Mist rises in thin ribbons above the cooler water, drifting lazily between the reeds. The Nile seems almost silent now. Only the faint sound of water touching the muddy banks reminds anyone who happens to be awake that the river never truly rests. A fisherman sits alone in his small wooden boat. He has chosen to cast his nets during the deepest part of the night. His movements are slow enough that the boat barely rocks upon the gentle current. Each pull of the net is careful. Each knot is checked by touch rather than sight. The stars provide enough light to guide experienced hands. Across the river, a marsh bird lifts into the air with a quiet flutter of wings before settling again only a short distance away. The fisherman smiles to himself. He has spent so many nights upon these waters that darkness feels almost like an old friend. Back in the village, the farmer remains asleep. His breathing matches the peaceful rhythm of his family around him. The youngest child turns over slightly upon his mat. His mother gently adjusts the linen cloth beneath his head without fully waking. Even in sleep, parents continue caring for their children. Hours pass almost unnoticed. The stars slowly shift across the heavens. Little by little, the eastern horizon begins to lose its deepest darkness. The first hint of another day appears as a thin gray line far beyond the river. No one sees it at first. The change is almost too gentle to notice. The birds notice. One small swallow stirs beneath the roof of a nearby house. Another answers from a date palm. Soon a few quiet notes drift across the sleeping village. The farmer's eyes open naturally. There is no loud sound. No sudden movement. His body has learned this hour through years of repetition. He remains still for a moment. The room is peaceful. His family continues sleeping. The cool air feels pleasant against his face. He steps carefully outside. The village is wrapped in the soft light that comes just before dawn. The stars have not yet disappeared. The moon hangs low above the western horizon. The world feels suspended between night and morning. He breathes deeply. The air smells different now. Cool water. Fresh reeds. Moist earth. These scents will soon fade beneath the warmth of the sun, but for this brief time they belong entirely to the early morning. The farmer enjoys them quietly. Nearby, another doorway opens. An elderly neighbor steps outside carrying a small clay cup. The two men exchange a silent nod. They have greeted one another this way for many years. No conversation is needed before sunrise. Some mornings seem too peaceful for many words. The farmer walks slowly toward the river. His empty water jars hang from the familiar wooden pole across his shoulders. The path is still cool beneath his sandals. Dust has settled during the night, leaving the ground firm and smooth. He passes sleeping goats gathered closely together inside a simple enclosure made from reeds and wooden posts. One lifts its head briefly before settling again. Farther ahead, a donkey shakes its ears and stretches after the night's rest. The first birds now fill the air with gentle song. Nothing about their music feels hurried. Each note seems to welcome the coming light with quiet confidence. As the farmer reaches the Nile, he pauses. The river before sunrise is unlike the river at any other hour. Its surface reflects the fading stars while waiting for the first touch of daylight. Mist drifts low above the water. Tall papyrus reeds stand perfectly still. Even the fish seem slower beneath the calm surface. He lowers his clay jar carefully into the cool water. Small ripples spread outward in perfect circles. They travel silently across the mirror-like river before disappearing among the reeds. He lifts the filled jar. Droplets slide down its curved sides, catching the first faint light of dawn. He balances both jars across his shoulders and begins the quiet walk home once more. Behind him, the eastern sky brightens ever so slightly. Ahead of him, the village slowly awakens. The grinding stones will soon begin their familiar rhythm. The ovens will be warmed. Fresh bread will fill the morning air with its comforting fragrance. Children will wake. Oxen will return to the fields. The canals will carry life once more across the fertile land. Another ordinary day in ancient Egypt is preparing to begin, gently and patiently, just as thousands of mornings have done before, beneath the endless sky and beside the timeless waters of the Nile. The first light of dawn spreads slowly across the eastern horizon. It does not arrive all at once. Instead, it gently brushes the tops of the date palms, then the roofs of the mud brick homes, and finally the quiet paths that wind between the houses. The village seems to awaken one small moment at a time, as though it is taking a long, peaceful breath before another day begins. The farmer returns home carrying the two clay jars balanced across his shoulders. The water inside moves with each careful step, making a soft, hollow sound against the smooth walls of the jars. It is a familiar music, heard every morning by families throughout the Nile Valley. At the doorway, his wife is already awake. She smiles as he sets the jars beside the wall. Neither of them speaks immediately. There is comfort in beginning the day with quiet understanding. She pours a little water into a shallow clay bowl and washes her hands before reaching for a basket filled with barley grain. The kernels have been stored carefully since the last harvest, protected from damp air and hungry mice inside large sealed jars. She measures only what the family needs for the morning. Every handful is valuable. The farmer watches for a moment before stepping outside again. Across the village, thin lines of smoke begin rising from rooftop openings as cooking fires are lit. The scent of dry acacia wood mixes with the cool morning air, followed by the warm aroma of fresh bread beginning to bake. Soon the familiar sound returns. Stone against stone. A slow, steady rhythm. Women throughout the village grind grain with smooth hand stones worn shiny by many years of use. The sound comes from every direction, gentle and even, blending into one quiet song that seems to belong to the morning itself. The farmer has heard it every day since childhood. It reminds him of home more than any other sound. He steps into the small courtyard behind the house where a few chickens scratch at the dusty ground, searching patiently for seeds and insects. The birds cluck softly to one another. One proudly leads a line of tiny chicks through the shade of a woven fence. The farmer scatters a small handful of grain. The chickens hurry toward it, pecking with quick, careful movements. Nothing is wasted. Even these birds play an important part in the life of the household. Nearby, a clay jar catches water dripping slowly from a damp cloth stretched across its opening. The cloth keeps the water pleasantly cool as the morning warms. The farmer lifts the lid and takes a slow drink. The water tastes fresh. He closes his eyes for just a moment, enjoying its coolness before setting the lid back in place. The youngest child stirs inside the house. A sleepy face appears in the doorway. The little boy rubs his eyes and watches his father feed the chickens. For a few moments he simply stands there, still wrapped in the quiet of sleep. Then he walks across the courtyard and slips his small hand into his father's rough palm. The contrast between them is striking. One hand is tiny and smooth. The other is broad, weathered, and marked by years beneath the Egyptian sun. The farmer gently squeezes his son's hand. One day these small fingers will become strong enough to hold a hoe, guide an ox, or lift heavy baskets filled with grain. There is no hurry. Childhood still belongs to him. The smell of baking bread grows stronger. Inside the house, flat loaves rest against the warm inner wall of the clay oven. Their edges begin turning lightly golden as steam escapes through tiny cracks in the crust. The farmer's wife removes one loaf using a long wooden paddle. She places it upon a woven mat to cool. The crust makes a soft crackling sound as the cooler air touches it. Soon another loaf follows. Then another. The room fills with the comforting fragrance of warm grain. The family gathers for breakfast. Fresh bread is torn by hand and shared around a low table. A bowl of crushed beans seasoned with herbs sits nearby. There are onions, a few dates, and a little goat cheese wrapped in linen. Simple food. Food prepared with care. The children eat quietly. The oldest listens while his father speaks about the work waiting in the fields. Today they must inspect several irrigation channels after a night of gentle river flow. One small embankment may need strengthening. Some young barley should be checked for insects. The tasks are ordinary. No one finds them disappointing. Ordinary work keeps the village alive. After breakfast, the family steps outside together. The village is fully awake now. Neighbors sweep the packed earth before their homes using bundles of dried reeds. Children carry empty baskets toward the river. A potter loads yesterday's dry jars onto a wooden sled that will be pulled toward the kiln. The baker's oven glows warmly as more loaves are prepared for families who have brought their own dough to be baked. A pair of donkeys waits patiently beside a narrow lane. Their baskets are filled with bundles of flax freshly harvested from nearby fields. The pale blue flowers have already faded, leaving behind strong fibers that will become linen. The farmer pauses to watch for a moment. Linen is everywhere in the village. It becomes clothing, blankets, ropes, sacks, and sails. The process begins quietly in the fields, long before anyone wears the finished cloth. He admires the careful work that each trade requires. Every family depends upon many others. The farmer grows grain. The potter shapes jars. The carpenter repairs tools. The fisherman gathers food from the river. The weaver makes cloth. The shepherd watches the animals. The scribe records harvests and taxes. Each life is connected to the next, like the woven strands of a basket. No one truly stands alone. The farmer walks toward the fields with his oldest child beside him. The boy carries a much smaller hoe over his shoulder. He tries to match his father's long stride, though his legs are still too short. Every now and then he must take 2 quick steps to keep pace. His father notices but says nothing. He remembers doing exactly the same thing beside his own father many years ago. The path follows the edge of a canal where the morning light sparkles upon the water. Tiny fish flash silver beneath the surface. Dragonflies hover just above the reeds, their delicate wings shining like thin sheets of glass. The breeze remains cool. It carries the sweet scent of blooming lotus flowers drifting from a quiet pool nearby. The boy stops to watch a kingfisher. The small bird sits perfectly still upon a reed. Without warning it dives into the water. A heartbeat later it rises again, a tiny fish held firmly in its beak. The bird flies away toward the marshes. The boy smiles with quiet amazement. His father smiles too. He remembers watching the very same birds when he was young. Some things seem never to change. As they reach the fields, other farmers are already at work. The first rays of sunlight spread across the green barley, making each blade shine with tiny drops of dew. The dew will soon disappear beneath the warmth of the morning, but for now it gives the fields a soft, silvery glow. The farmer kneels beside an irrigation channel. The water flows gently between its low earthen banks. He runs his fingers through the cool current. The flow is steady. The embankment's held through the night. He is pleased. His son watches closely. The farmer points toward a small crack beginning to form along one edge. Without speaking, he picks up a handful of damp mud and presses it firmly into place. The boy nods. He understands. Tiny problems become larger ones if ignored. A few moments of care today may save many hours of work tomorrow. Together they continue along the canal. The boy begins repairing smaller cracks on his own, carefully copying every movement. His work is not perfect. Some patches are uneven. Others are too thin. The farmer gently smooths them with the back of his hand. He does not criticize. Learning is slow, just like the growth of grain. Patience is one of the most valuable tools a farmer can carry. The morning sun climbs higher. Its warmth begins to spread across the valley once again. Birdsong slowly gives way to the steady sounds of work. Wooden hoes press into the earth. Water murmurs through narrow channels. Oxen breathe deeply as they pull simple plows across distant fields. The quiet life of ancient Egypt unfolds once more, one careful task after another, beneath the endless blue sky, where every ordinary day adds another gentle thread to the long and peaceful story of the Nile. The morning settles into its familiar rhythm. The cool freshness that greeted the dawn begins to fade, though it lingers for a little while in the shade of the date palms and along the quiet edges of the canals. The first warmth of the day spreads across the fields, touching the barley, the reeds, and the broad leaves of young vegetables growing in small family gardens. The farmer and his son continue walking beside the irrigation channel. Their pace is slow. Every few steps they stop to look more closely at the flowing water. They watch where it bends around a gentle curve, where it slips beneath a small wooden footbridge, and where it divides into narrower channels that carry life to neighboring fields. The father pauses beside a simple wooden gate built across the canal. It is not a grand structure. It has been made from sturdy pieces of wood tied together with rope woven from flax fibers. The gate allows the farmers to guide water toward one field while gently slowing its flow toward another. He places both hands upon the smooth wood. Years of water have darkened its surface. He lifts it only a little. The current changes at once. More water begins to flow toward a patch of young barley that needs a little extra moisture after several warm days. His son watches with careful attention. The movement seems simple. Yet it requires experience. Too much water can weaken the plants. Too little can leave them thirsty beneath the growing sun. Finding the right balance is one of the quiet skills learned only after many seasons. The farmer lowers the gate again. The water settles into its steady course. Nothing more is needed. Nearby, an elderly farmer kneels beside a small patch of onions. His white hair catches the sunlight, and the deep lines upon his face speak of many years spent beneath the Egyptian sky. He gently loosens the soil around each plant using a short wooden tool. His movements are unhurried. Every handful of earth is treated with care. The younger farmers often wonder how he continues working at his age. He simply smiles whenever someone asks. "The land teaches us to keep moving," he once said. The farmer remembers those words often. They seem especially true on peaceful mornings like this. As the sun rises higher, more villagers arrive in the fields. Some carry woven baskets filled with seed. Others balance clay water jars upon their shoulders. A pair of brothers guide 2 oxen toward a freshly prepared field where another day's plowing will soon begin. Their voices remain quiet. Even the animals seem to understand the gentle mood of the morning. The farmer's son notices a tiny snail slowly crossing the damp earth beside the canal. He kneels immediately. The small shell shines with drops of morning dew. For several moments he simply watches the tiny creature continue its patient journey. His father says nothing. There is no need to hurry a child away from simple wonder. Ancient Egypt is full of quiet lessons. Some are found in the fields. Some beside the river. Some inside the smallest living creatures. Eventually the boy stands again. They continue their walk. The path curves gently toward a grove of sycamore fig trees. Their wide branches cast cool shadows upon the ground below. The leaves rustle softly whenever the breeze passes through them. Birds move from branch to branch, filling the air with gentle songs that drift across the nearby fields. Several workers have gathered beneath the trees for a short rest before returning to their tasks. One man sharpens the edge of his bronze sickle using a smooth stone. The scraping sound is soft and steady. Another repairs the handle of a wooden rake, carefully wrapping fresh leather around a small crack to strengthen it. Nothing is discarded simply because it shows signs of age. Every tool is cared for. A well-made hoe may serve a family for many years if repaired with patience. The farmer examines his own wooden hoe. The handle feels as strong as ever. Its smooth surface has been polished by countless mornings just like this one. His father carved this handle many years ago from a piece of tamarisk wood. He remembers watching the careful work. The older man had turned the wood slowly in his hands, removing one thin shaving after another with a bronze blade. "There," his father had said with a quiet smile, handing it to him. "It should fit your hands, not mine." Those words have stayed with him ever since. The hoe has become more than a tool. It carries the memory of the hands that shaped it. His son reaches out and touches the polished handle. "Will I use this one someday?" he asks softly. The farmer looks at the tool for a moment. Then he smiles. "Perhaps," he says. "If it still has many seasons left." The boy grins. To him, many seasons seem almost endless. The farmer knows otherwise. Time moves gently, yet it never stands still. A breeze crosses the fields once more. The barley sways together like quiet waves upon a green sea. The sound is almost like whispering. The farmer closes his eyes for just a moment. He listens. Wind. Grain. Flowing water. Birdsong. The distant creak of a wooden cart. These sounds have surrounded him since the day he was born. He cannot imagine another life. Farther away, along the edge of the Nile, fishermen are pulling their morning catch ashore. Large woven baskets rest beside the boats. Fresh fish glisten in the sunlight. Some will be cooked today. Others will be salted and dried so they can be eaten during the weeks ahead. The smell of the river drifts gently across the valley. It carries hints of wet reeds, fresh mud, and cool water. The farmer always notices it, no matter how busy the day becomes. It reminds him that everything around him depends upon the great river. Without the Nile, the green fields would disappear. The canals would become dry paths of cracked earth. The birds would seek other marshes. The villages would slowly fade beneath the desert sand. But the Nile has always returned. Each year it brings new water, new soil, new hope. The farmer has learned not to take its gifts for granted. As the morning continues, the workers spread across the fields. Each person seems to know exactly where to go. There is no shouting, no confusion. One woman gathers herbs growing near the edge of a small garden. She ties them into neat bundles using strips of flax. The fresh scent of mint and coriander rises into the warm air. Nearby, two children collect smooth stones from a field before the oxen begin plowing. They chatter quietly as they work, comparing the shapes of the stones they find. One discovers a pebble striped with bands of pale brown and cream. He slips it into a small cloth pouch. Perhaps he will keep it. Perhaps he will give it to his younger sister. Small treasures have their place in every childhood. The farmer smiles as he watches them. Life is made of many little moments. Most are forgotten. Some remain forever. The sun climbs a little higher. The cool shade beneath the sycamore trees becomes more precious now. A woman carrying fresh water stops beside the workers. She pours cool water into small clay cups. Each person drinks slowly. The cups are passed from hand to hand with quiet gratitude. The water tastes faintly of the clay jar in which it has rested. It is refreshing all the same. The farmer splashes a little across his face. Droplets fall onto the dry earth below. Within moments they disappear. The valley has begun warming again. Soon the strongest heat of the day will arrive. For now, however, the morning still holds a gentle softness. The breeze continues to move through the barley. The river continues its endless journey northward. The birds continue their quiet songs. And across the fertile land of ancient Egypt, ordinary people carry on with the steady work that has shaped their lives for generations, adding one more peaceful morning to the timeless rhythm of the Nile. The sun continues its slow climb across the white Egyptian sky. Its light grows warmer with every passing hour, spreading gently over the fields until the last traces of morning coolness disappear. The shadows cast by the date palms become shorter, drawing closer to the trunks that have stood beside the Nile through countless seasons. The farmer wipes a fine layer of dust from his hands. The soil beneath his fingers is dark and rich, still holding moisture from the water that flowed through the canals at dawn. He crumbles a small handful between his thumb and forefinger, feeling its texture without even thinking about it. Good soil has its own language. It speaks through its weight, through its scent, through the way it clings softly to the skin. A lifetime spent farming has taught him to understand these quiet signs. He kneels beside a row of young bean plants. Their leaves are broad and healthy, catching the sunlight as though they are reaching toward it. A few tiny weeds have appeared between them during the night. One by one, he removes them. There is no quick way. His fingers work carefully, loosening each weed at its roots before placing it into a small woven basket. Pulling too quickly might disturb the young crop. Patience is always rewarded. Beside him, his son copies the same movements. His small hands are slower. Sometimes he pulls only the leaves while the roots remain hidden beneath the soil. His father quietly reaches over, gently loosening the earth around the stubborn root. "Like this," he says. The boy nods. He tries again. This time the entire weed comes free. A quiet smile spreads across his face. The farmer smiles as well. No praise needs to be spoken aloud. The boy already knows he has done well. Nearby, a pair of women walk slowly through a small flax field. The pale green stems sway gently around their ankles. They stop every so often to examine the plants, looking closely for signs that they are growing evenly. Flax is valuable. From these slender stems will come strong linen, woven into garments that are light enough to wear through the hottest days of summer. The work begins long before the weaving. Every stage requires care. Every pair of hands adds something to the finished cloth. A breeze drifts across the valley. It carries the scent of warm reeds from the riverbank and the faint sweetness of blooming lotus flowers floating in quiet pools beside the Nile. Dragonflies glide effortlessly above the water. Their wings catch flashes of sunlight before disappearing against the blue sky. The farmer pauses for a moment. He listens. Somewhere beyond the fields, the steady tapping of a carpenter echoes through the village. Tap. Pause. Tap. The rhythm is slow and measured. Perhaps a door is being repaired. Perhaps a cartwheel. Perhaps a wooden chest that has served one family for many years. Wood is precious in Egypt. Large trees are uncommon along much of the Nile Valley. Every beam, every board, every peg is treated with respect. Nothing useful is wasted. The farmer remembers helping repair his own roof during the previous season. Heavy bundles of reeds had been laid across the wooden beams before fresh mud was spread over the top. The work had taken several days. His neighbors had come to help. Later, when another family repaired their roof, he returned the kindness. That is simply how the village lives. No one keeps careful count of every favor. People help because one day they may also need helping. As the morning stretches toward midday, more travelers appear upon the dusty road that follows the river. Most are ordinary people. A shepherd leads a small flock of sheep toward fresh grazing. A merchant walks beside a patient donkey carrying baskets covered with linen cloth. A woman balances 2 jars of milk across a wooden yoke resting comfortably upon her shoulders. Each traveler moves at an easy pace. The road itself is ancient. Long before the farmer was born, others walked this same path. Their sandals left footprints that disappeared beneath wind and time. Generation after generation has followed the Nile, always finding water, fertile fields, and welcoming villages. The farmer watches the merchant for a few moments. The donkey's baskets contain simple goods collected from several villages. Perhaps dried fish. Perhaps woven mats. Perhaps jars of oil or bundles of papyrus. The merchant will exchange them for other useful things farther along the river. Trade is quiet here. It grows from trust built over many years. The merchant greets the farmers with a friendly wave. Several wave back before returning to their work. There is comfort in recognizing familiar faces upon the road. Not far away, An elderly shepherd sits beneath a date palm while his sheep graze nearby. He leans upon a smooth wooden staff polished by decades of use. His sandals are dusty. His linen robe has been repaired many times. Yet there is a peaceful look upon his face. He watches the animals without concern. The flock knows his voice. They wander only so far before returning on their own. A small lamb strays toward the edge of a field. The shepherd whistles softly. The lamb pauses. Then quietly turns back toward the others. The farmer smiles. Even animals seem to understand gentle guidance better than harsh commands. The sun climbs steadily higher. The warmth settles across the valley like a soft blanket. Sweat gathers upon brows. Workers tie linen cloths around their heads to shade themselves from the brightest light. The air shimmers faintly above the dry paths. Still, the canals remain cool. Water continues flowing patiently through every branch, reflecting the sky in ribbons of pale blue. The farmer and his son walk toward one of the larger canals. Its banks are lined with tall papyrus reeds that sway gently whenever the breeze passes through them. The stems rise far above their heads. Green. Straight. Graceful. The father reaches down and cuts several mature stalks using a small bronze knife. His son watches carefully. The reeds will dry in the shade before being carried back to the village. Some will become woven mats. Others will be used to mend a section of the roof. One bundle has already been promised to a neighbor whose sleeping mat has begun to wear thin. The boy gathers the cut reeds into neat bundles. They smell fresh. Almost sweet. Tiny droplets of water cling to the lower stems where they have stood in the canal all morning. As they work, a pair of ibis birds steps carefully through the shallow water nearby. Their long curved beaks probe the soft mud for insects and tiny creatures hidden beneath the surface. The birds seem completely untroubled by the farmers. People and wildlife have shared these riverbanks for longer than anyone remembers. The father points toward the birds. They know where the water is richest, he says quietly. The boy nods thoughtfully. Perhaps one day he too will remember where the ibis prefer to feed. Every small observation becomes another piece of knowledge. Nothing is too ordinary to notice. By late morning the baskets of reeds are full. The father lifts one onto his shoulder. His son carries the lighter bundle. Together they begin the slow walk back toward the village. The path follows the edge of the Nile. The river sparkles brightly now beneath the sun. Fishing boats drift lazily upon its calm surface. A few sails catch the breeze, their white linen glowing against the deep blue water. The sound of paddles dipping gently into the river reaches the shore only faintly. A fisherman raises one hand in greeting. The farmer answers with a quiet nod. Neither man stops. Each has his own work to finish before the day grows hotter. The village appears ahead, resting peacefully among clusters of palms and sycamore trees. Thin streams of smoke curl upward from cooking fires as families begin preparing the midday meal. The smell of baking bread mingles with the fragrance of lentils simmering slowly in clay pots. Somewhere a child laughs. Somewhere else an old woman sings softly while turning grain upon a woven mat to dry in the sunlight. Life continues in its gentle rhythm. The farmer feels the familiar weight of the reeds across his shoulder. His muscles ache pleasantly. His sandals stir little puffs of dust with every step. He knows that by evening he will be tired once again. But it is the kind of tiredness that comes from caring for the land, providing for a family, and living in harmony with the quiet seasons of the Nile. So he walks on beneath the bright Egyptian sky, beside his son, along the timeless river that has guided countless ordinary lives, one peaceful day after another. The road back to the village feels warm beneath their sandals. The sun now stands high above the Nile Valley, filling the open land with bright, gentle light. The breeze still moves across the fields, though it has become softer, carrying with it the warmth of the approaching midday. The farmer shifts the bundle of papyrus reeds on his shoulder. The weight is familiar. Years of carrying grain, water jars, firewood, and baskets of vegetables have taught his body how to move without wasting effort. He walks with a steady, balanced pace, allowing the load to rest comfortably across his back. His son follows a few steps behind. The smaller bundle he carries is not heavy, but he treats it with great care. Every now and then he adjusts the reeds to keep them from slipping. His father notices without saying anything. Learning begins with small responsibilities. One day the boy will carry larger bundles. For now, this is enough. The path curves gently around a shallow pond left behind after the last flooding season. The water is still. White lotus flowers float peacefully upon its surface, their broad green leaves spreading in quiet circles. Bright blue dragonflies hover above the blossoms, occasionally settling for only a heartbeat before lifting into the warm air once again. The farmer slows his pace. He has walked past this pond thousands of times. Still, he always looks at it. Every season it changes a little. Sometimes the water stands higher. Sometimes reeds grow thick along the edges. Sometimes migrating birds stop here for only a few days before continuing their long journeys. Today, a family of ducks glide slowly across the pond. The smallest ducklings stay close behind their mother, leaving tiny ripples that spread gently across the mirrored surface. The boy watches them with quiet delight. "They never get lost," he says softly. The farmer smiles. "They stay together." The boy nods thoughtfully, keeping his eyes on the little birds until they disappear among the reeds. Soon the path joins a wider road that follows the Nile. Here, more people are traveling. A pair of young men guide a simple cart pulled by a patient donkey. The cart is filled with freshly fired clay jars wrapped carefully in bundles of straw. Each jar represents many days of careful work. Gathering the clay, shaping it upon the wheel, drying it beneath the sun, firing it inside the hot kiln. Every vessel carries the quiet labor of skilled hands. The cart rolls slowly over the packed earth. Its wooden wheels creak gently with each turn. The sound has echoed along these roads for generations. Not far behind them, an elderly woman walks with remarkable grace despite the heavy basket balanced upon her head. Inside are fresh figs gathered from a nearby orchard. Their sweet fragrance drifts into the warm air. As she passes the farmer, they exchange warm smiles. She has known him since he was a small child running barefoot through the village lanes. Now she watches his own son walking beside him. Time moves quietly in places like this. Children become adults almost without anyone noticing. The village grows busier as midday approaches. The potter's yard is alive with quiet activity. Rows of freshly fired jars stand cooling beneath the sun, their reddish surfaces glowing warmly against the pale earth. Some are large enough to store grain for an entire season. Others are slender water jars with narrow necks designed to keep their contents cool. The potter himself sits beneath a woven shade. His hands are covered with fine dust from dried clay. He gently smooths the rim of a newly shaped bowl while his apprentice turns the wheel with slow, even movements. Neither speaks much. Their work requires careful attention. The spinning wheel hums softly beneath practiced hands. Across the lane, the village carpenter measures a long piece of imported cedar wood. The wood carries a pleasant scent unlike the local trees growing beside the Nile. It is valuable. Every cut must be planned. The carpenter studies the grain before lifting his bronze saw. Each stroke is slow, precise. Tiny curls of fragrant wood gather at his feet. Nearby, children pause to watch for a moment before continuing their games. The farmer passes the open workshop. He admires the carpenter's patience. Every craft has its own rhythm. The potter listens to the turning wheel. The carpenter listens to the grain of the wood. The weaver listens to the thread stretching across the loom. The farmer listens to the water flowing through the fields. Each person learns to hear something different. Yet together they create the life of the village. His own home comes into view. The courtyard lies partly shaded beneath a date palm planted by his grandfather many years ago. Its trunk is thick now, its rough bark marked by countless seasons. High above, clusters of ripening dates hang beneath broad leaves that rustle gently in the breeze. His wife steps into the courtyard as he arrives. She notices the bundles of papyrus. "These will make good mats," she says quietly. He nods. "And enough left for the roof." Together they untie the bundles. The fresh reeds are spread carefully beneath the shade where they can dry slowly without becoming brittle in the midday sun. The boy arranges the stalks neatly, trying to leave small spaces between them so air can move freely. His father watches with quiet approval. No instruction is needed. The child has been paying attention. Inside the house, the clay oven still holds gentle warmth from the morning baking. A pot of lentils simmers slowly over glowing coals. The rich scent fills the cool room. Nearby, onions, garlic, and herbs rest upon a woven mat waiting to be prepared for the midday meal. The farmer washes his hands in cool water poured from one of the clay jars he filled before sunrise. The water feels wonderfully refreshing. Tiny drops run along his wrists before falling onto the packed earth floor. His wife hands him a clean linen cloth. It smells faintly of sunshine from drying outside earlier that week. He dries his hands slowly. For a few quiet moments, there is nothing to do. The work pauses. Not because it is finished. Because every worker needs moments of rest if strength is to last through many seasons. He steps back outside. The shade beneath the date palm feels pleasant now. The leaves above move gently, creating shifting patterns of light upon the ground. His son sits nearby, carving small lines into a piece of fallen wood using a smooth stone. The shapes are simple. Perhaps they will become a tiny toy boat. Perhaps only patterns made for the joy of making them. The farmer remembers doing much the same thing when he was young. Children have always found quiet ways to fill peaceful afternoons. Across the village, life continues at its calm pace. A shepherd leads his flock toward a shaded pasture beyond the fields. Goats nibble patiently at low shrubs. A woman hangs freshly washed linen across a rope stretched between two wooden posts. The cloth moves softly in the breeze, bright against the blue sky. A fisherman repairs a torn net beneath the shade of his boat. His fingers move steadily, knot after knot, until the damaged section disappears into the pattern once again. Nothing useful remains broken for long. Repair is simply another part of living. From somewhere beyond the neighboring houses comes the gentle sound of a flute. Its melody is slow and unhurried. Perhaps an older man is playing while resting in the shade. Perhaps a young shepherd is passing the quiet hours before returning to his flock. The notes drift through the warm air like the breeze itself. They come. They fade. Then another simple tune begins. The farmer closes his eyes for a moment. The music blends with the rustling palms, the distant murmur of the Nile, and the quiet voices of neighbors speaking in shaded courtyards. It is a peaceful sound. The kind that belongs only to ordinary days. When he opens his eyes again, he looks toward the fields beyond the village. The barley shines beneath the midday sun. The irrigation canals continue carrying cool water across the fertile earth. Birds wheel lazily above the reeds. Nothing appears hurried. Nothing demands excitement. The land simply continues its gentle work, just as it has through countless generations, while the farmer rests beneath the shade of the old date palm, gathering quiet strength before the afternoon's peaceful labor begins once more. The shade beneath the old date palm grows deeper as the sun reaches the middle of the sky. For a little while, the village becomes quieter than at any other hour of the day. The busiest work pauses. The strongest heat settles gently over the Nile Valley, encouraging people to slow their movements and seek the comfort of thick mud brick walls, woven reed shelters, or the broad branches of trees planted long ago by careful hands. The farmer remains seated in the courtyard. His back rests lightly against the rough trunk of the date palm. The bark is warm where the sun has touched it, yet cool enough beneath the shade to feel comfortable. Above him, clusters of dates sway gently whenever the breeze reaches them. A few dry leaves whisper together high overhead, making a sound so soft that it almost disappears beneath the quiet hum of insects. His son continues carving his small piece of wood. The little boat is beginning to take shape. It is uneven. One side is thicker than the other. The front curves slightly too much. Still, it resembles the fishing boats that drift across the Nile every morning. The boy holds it up with quiet pride. His father studies it for a moment. "It will float," he says with a gentle smile. The boy's face brightens. That is all he hoped to hear. His father remembers the first toy boat he carved for himself many years ago. It had floated only a short distance before tipping over into the river. He had laughed. His own father had laughed with him. Not because the little boat failed. Because another could always be made. There was always another piece of wood. Always another afternoon beside the Nile. Inside the house, the lentils have finished cooking. The farmer's wife lifts the clay pot from the glowing coals with practiced hands. She stirs the thick stew slowly using a smooth wooden spoon worn thin by many years of use. The fragrance of onions, garlic, and herbs drifts through the doorway and into the courtyard. It mingles with the scent of warm earth and drying papyrus reeds. The meal is simple. Fresh bread baked that morning. A bowl of lentils. Goat cheese wrapped in linen. A handful of olives traded from a village farther north. Several ripe dates placed carefully upon a clay plate. Cool water poured into small cups. Nothing more is needed. The family gathers together. They sit upon woven reed mats spread across the packed earth. The youngest child quietly tears pieces of bread, dipping them into the warm lentils. The oldest reaches for an onion, peeling away its dry outer skin before slicing it carefully with a small bronze knife. The farmer thanks his wife with a quiet nod. She smiles in return. Many feelings pass between people without needing words. They eat slowly. No one rushes the meal. Outside, the village remains calm. The midday heat encourages patience. Across the narrow lane, an elderly neighbor naps peacefully beneath a woven canopy stretched between two wooden posts. A cat curls itself beside him, asleep in the shade. From time to time the old man shifts slightly, adjusting his linen cloth beneath his head before settling once again into peaceful rest. Nearby, two women sit together repairing worn clothing. One threads a bronze needle with fine linen thread. The other carefully patches a small tear in a child's tunic. Their fingers move steadily. The cloth has faded after many washings. Yet it still has years of usefulness ahead. Nothing is discarded simply because it has grown old. Every garment is mended. Every basket is repaired. Every tool is sharpened. Life along the Nile teaches careful use of every valuable thing. When the meal is finished, the clay bowls are rinsed with a little water. The remaining bread is wrapped in linen and placed inside a covered basket where it will stay fresh until evening. The youngest child grows sleepy. His mother gently lays him upon a woven mat inside the cool house. The thick mud brick walls keep the room pleasantly shaded. Light enters only through the doorway and a small opening near the roof. Tiny beams of sunlight stretch across the floor, catching floating specks of dust that drift lazily through the still air. The child falls asleep almost at once. Outside, the farmer picks up his son's little wooden boat. He turns it over in his hands. The grain of the wood catches the light. The carved shape is simple. There are no decorations. No painted sail. Only the smooth outline of a river boat. He reaches for a small piece of linen cord and ties it gently around the middle. Then he cuts a tiny reed from one of the drying bundles and slips it beneath the cord. A small sail. Nothing more. He hands the finished toy back to his son. The boy smiles so widely that no words are needed. Together they walk toward the river. The path is quiet during this warm hour. Few people travel beneath the brightest sun unless they must. The dust beneath their sandals feels warm, but not unpleasant. A breeze from the water cools the air little by little as they approach the riverbank. The Nile lies calm before them. Its surface reflects the blue sky with hardly a ripple. Only the slow movement of the current reminds them that the river never truly stands still. They kneel beside a quiet inlet protected by tall papyrus reeds. The water here is shallow and peaceful. The boy carefully places his little boat upon the surface. For a moment it remains perfectly still. Then the gentle current catches the tiny sail. The boat begins to drift. Very slowly. The boy watches with complete attention. His father watches too. The little boat glides between floating lotus leaves. A dragonfly lands upon the reed sail for just an instant before lifting away again. The boat continues its quiet journey until it gently touches the muddy bank several arm lengths downstream. The boy laughs softly. He wades into the shallow water, lifts the little boat, and carries it back to begin again. Again the boat floats. Again the current carries it gently forward. The farmer smiles. There are lessons even in play. The river teaches patience. It teaches steady movement. It teaches that even the smallest boat can travel if it allows the current to guide it. Nearby, an old fisherman sits repairing one of his nets. The fine cord passes through his weathered fingers with practiced ease. His hands are deeply lined. The skin has grown dark beneath decades of sunlight. Every knot he ties is nearly identical to the last. He notices the little boat drifting by. It sails well, he says quietly. The boy beams with pride. My father helped. The fisherman nods. Then it carries 2 pairs of hands. The words settle gently into the afternoon air. The farmer thanks him with a respectful smile. They have known each other for many years. The fisherman once taught him how to recognize changing currents near the riverbank. In return, the farmer has often shared grain after generous harvests. Friendship along the Nile is built little by little. Like repairing a fishing net. Like weaving a basket. Like tending a field. Many small acts become something strong. The breeze freshens slightly. The papyrus reeds sway together with a soft rustling sound. A white heron steps carefully through the shallows, lifting each long leg with quiet grace. It pauses. Its sharp eyes watch the water. Without warning, its beak flashes downward. A tiny fish disappears. The bird swallows once before continuing its patient walk. The boy watches in amazement. The farmer simply smiles. He has seen the same graceful hunt countless times. Yet somehow it never grows ordinary. The afternoon slowly begins its gentle turn toward evening. The sunlight softens almost too gradually to notice. Longer shadows begin to stretch across the paths leading back to the village. The warmth eases. The air becomes easier to breathe. Soon the workers will return to the fields for the cooler hours before sunset. Soon the steady rhythm of hoes, sandals, flowing water, and quiet voices will once again fill the fertile land. For now, father and son remain beside the timeless Nile, watching a small wooden boat drift peacefully upon the gentle current, while the ancient river continues its endless journey northward, carrying with it the quiet stories of ordinary people whose lives flow as steadily as the water itself. The little wooden boat drifts quietly back toward the muddy shore. The boy reaches into the shallow water and lifts it gently with both hands. Tiny drops fall from its smooth wooden sides, making small circles that spread across the calm surface of the Nile before fading away. He brushes a strand of wet hair away from his forehead. The reed sail still stands proudly. It has leaned slightly to one side after its short journey, but it has stayed firmly tied to the tiny mast. The farmer kneels beside his son. With one careful finger, he straightens the little sail. "There," he says softly. "It is ready for another voyage." The boy smiles. He sets the boat into the water once more. This time he watches even more closely. Instead of pushing it, he simply lets the river choose its path. The current catches the tiny craft. It turns gently. Not in a straight line, but in a slow, graceful curve around a floating lotus leaf before continuing downstream. The farmer watches with quiet satisfaction. The Nile has always been a patient teacher. No one commands its waters. The wise simply learn to work with them. The afternoon breeze grows a little stronger. It carries the fresh scent of river water across the reeds and into the nearby fields. The tall papyrus plants bow together, then slowly rise again. Their feathery tops sway with an almost sleepy rhythm. Dragonflies continue their silent flights above the water. Now and then one pauses upon a reed before lifting away again, its delicate wings shining like polished glass in the sunlight. The old fisherman finishes repairing his net. He folds it neatly across the side of his boat. Every knot has been checked. Every tear has disappeared beneath careful work. He stands slowly, stretching his back. Years spent leaning over nets have left his shoulders broad but slightly bent. He smiles toward the farmer. "Tomorrow," he says quietly, "the fish will rise earlier." The farmer nods. "You know the river better than anyone." The fisherman laughs softly. The river knows itself. It is the kind of answer that feels complete without further explanation. He unties his boat. The gentle current welcomes it. With a few easy strokes of his paddle, he moves toward deeper water, becoming smaller against the wide blue surface of the Nile. Father and son remain upon the bank. Neither speaks for a while. The silence is pleasant. It allows them to notice the little things. A turtle resting upon a sun-warmed log. A swallow skimming low across the water. The quiet ripple made by a fish just beneath the surface. A breeze carrying the distant scent of baking bread from the village. At last the farmer stands. The fields are waiting. The boy nods. He carefully tucks the little boat beneath his arm. Together they begin the walk back along the river path. The afternoon light has become softer now. The brightest heat has passed. The road feels livelier than it did earlier. People begin returning to their work after the quiet hours of rest. A woman carries a basket filled with freshly washed linen. The white cloth hangs neatly over the edge, still damp from the river. As she walks, the breeze lifts the corners gently, making them ripple like small sails. Nearby, two young men lead a pair of donkeys loaded with sacks of grain. The animals walk patiently, their ears flicking now and then to chase away insects. The sacks are carefully tied with flax rope. Each one represents many months of steady work. Harvest may still be some time away for the farmer's own fields, but grain stored from previous seasons remains the village's quiet treasure. No one forgets the importance of full storage jars. As they pass a small grove of sycamore fig trees, the farmer notices several children gathering fallen fruit. They work together. One child reaches beneath the broad leaves while another holds open a woven basket. Their laughter rises gently into the warm afternoon air. An elderly woman nearby reminds them not to leave any good fruit behind. Even the smallest figs can be dried for later use. The children nod seriously. Then, only moments later, they begin smiling again as they discover another ripe fruit hidden beneath the leaves. The farmer remembers climbing these same trees when he was young. Back then they had seemed impossibly tall. Now they appear smaller. Perhaps the trees have not changed at all. Perhaps only he has. The village comes into view once more. Smoke rises lazily from cooking fires where evening meals are beginning to take shape. The smell of roasting onions mingles with warm bread and fresh herbs. Somewhere, someone is grinding spices using a smooth stone mortar. The gentle rhythm reaches the road in quiet echoes. Tap. Turn. Tap. Turn. Simple sounds fill the village. The steady creak of a water jar being lifted. The rustle of woven baskets. The soft voices of neighbors greeting one another after the heat of midday. A dog stretches lazily beneath the shade of a cart. Goats wander slowly toward their pens. Life moves forward without hurry. Near the village well, several women draw cool water from its deep shaft. The rope slides smoothly across the worn wooden beam. The bucket disappears into darkness. A few moments later it returns, heavy with fresh water. Each jar is filled carefully. Not a single drop is wasted. The farmer waits while an elderly neighbor finishes filling her jars. When she struggles to lift one onto her shoulder, he quietly steps forward. Without a word, he raises it for her. She thanks him with a warm smile. "I remember," she says softly, "when your father carried my water." The farmer smiles. "I remember too." For a brief moment, both stand silently. The memory feels as gentle as the evening breeze. Then each continues on their way. Time has a quiet way of connecting one generation to another. The farmer's son walks beside him, listening carefully. He says nothing. But he remembers the kindness. Children notice more than adults often realize. At home, the drying papyrus reeds are turned so every side receives the afternoon air. The farmer and his son work together. The stalks make a soft rustling sound as they are lifted and laid back down. Their fresh green color has already begun to fade toward pale gold. In another few days they will be ready to weave. The boy asks if he may keep a few of the smaller reeds. "What for?" his father asks. "I want to build another boat." The farmer chuckles quietly. "Then choose the straightest ones." The boy carefully searches through the bundle. He examines each reed as though it were something precious. One is too curved. Another too thin. Finally he finds 3 nearly perfect pieces. He places them carefully beside the doorway. The farmer watches him. Building things begins with choosing well. That lesson applies to far more than boats. The afternoon slowly continues its peaceful journey toward evening. The shadows lengthen across the village paths. The air grows cooler with each passing moment. A flock of white doves circles above the rooftops before settling near a grain store where scattered kernels lie upon the ground. Palm leaves whisper gently overhead. Far beyond the village, the Nile reflects the lowering sun in long ribbons of shimmering gold. The farmer looks toward the river for a quiet moment. Tomorrow it will flow just the same. Tomorrow the birds will greet another dawn. Tomorrow fresh bread will bake inside the clay oven. Tomorrow the fields will ask once again for steady hands and patient hearts. These thoughts do not feel heavy. They feel comforting. There is peace in knowing what tomorrow will bring. With calm steps, he lifts his wooden hoe once more and walks toward the fields beside his son, while the soft afternoon light stretches across the fertile valley, wrapping ancient Egypt in the quiet, unchanging rhythm of another ordinary day beside the timeless Nile. The sun slips gently below the western horizon. Its golden light fades little by little from the fields, leaving behind long blue shadows that stretch across the quiet earth. The last warmth of the day lingers upon the mud brick walls of the village, while the cool evening breeze begins its familiar journey along the Nile. The farmer walks home without hurry. His wooden hoe rests comfortably across one shoulder. His sandals carry a little dust from the fields, and his hands still smell faintly of rich soil, fresh reeds, and cool river water. The work of the day is finished. Tomorrow will bring another sunrise. Another loaf of bread warming inside the clay oven. Another walk to the river before dawn. Another quiet conversation beneath the shade of a palm tree. Another gentle breeze moving through the barley. There is comfort in knowing these things. At home, the evening meal is simple and warm. Fresh bread is shared. A bowl of lentils passes from hand to hand. Dates rest upon a small clay plate in the center of the mat. The children speak softly about small discoveries from the day: a smooth stone found beside the canal, a white bird standing quietly among the reeds, a little wooden boat that floated farther than expected. The farmer listens more than he speaks. The sound of his family's voices fills the house more completely than any decoration ever could. When the meal is over, the bowls are washed with care. The last embers in the oven glow softly. The doorway is left open so the cool night air may drift inside. One by one, the village settles into silence. The carpenter lays down his tools. The potter covers his unfinished clay. The fisherman ties his boat securely to its post along the riverbank. The shepherd counts his flock one final time before resting. The baker brushes the last flour from his hands. Across the village, lamps burn gently behind small windows before slowly going dark. Above them all, the stars return. They arrive quietly, just as they always have. The farmer climbs to the flat roof of his home with his family. They spread woven reed mats beneath the open sky. The night is clear. The moon hangs above the eastern horizon, its pale light touching the river until the Nile seems to become a ribbon of silver winding through the darkness. A soft breeze carries the scent of water and distant papyrus. Somewhere along the shore, frogs begin their steady evening chorus. A night bird calls only once before becoming still again. The river answers with its gentle murmur against the reeds. The youngest child is already asleep. The little wooden boat rests beside his mat, carefully placed where it will not be stepped upon. His hand still lightly touches it, as though he is sailing peaceful waters even in his dreams. The farmer looks toward the endless ribbon of the Nile. He thinks of his father. And his grandfather. He remembers stories of hands that planted before his own hands were strong enough to hold a hoe. He remembers walking these same dusty paths as a boy, watching the sun rise over the river while carrying a water jar that felt almost too heavy. Now another small pair of feet follows beside his own. One day, his son will walk these paths alone. He will know where the irrigation channels bend. He will know the smell of rich black soil after the flood. He will hear the birds greeting the first light of dawn. He will teach another child how to guide water gently into waiting fields. So the seasons will continue. The river will continue. The stars above will continue. Generations will come and quietly pass beneath the same sky. The names of ordinary people may never be carved into stone. No great monument will remember the farmer's careful hands. No grand inscription will record the bread his family baked, the weeds he patiently pulled, the reeds he gathered, or the toy boat he helped his son carve beside the Nile. Yet his life mattered. Not because it was famous. Because it was lived with care. Every loaf of bread fed a family. Every repaired canal carried life to the fields. Every harvested grain became another season of hope. Every gentle lesson passed from parent to child quietly shaped the future. The great temples, towering statues, and magnificent monuments of ancient Egypt were only possible because countless ordinary mornings began just like his. Before kings awoke, farmers were already walking toward the river. Before scribes unrolled their papyrus, women were already grinding grain. Before builders lifted great stones, families had already baked bread beneath the glow of the morning fire. The quiet lives of ordinary people became the steady heartbeat of an entire civilization. And perhaps that is the gentlest lesson the Nile has always offered. Great things are often built from quiet days. From patient hands. From small kindnesses repeated again and again. From work that asks for no applause. The moon climbs a little higher. Its silver light spreads across the sleeping village. Palm leaves sway softly. The fields rest peacefully until another dawn. The water continues its endless journey northward, just as it has for thousands of years, carrying moonlight upon its surface and whispering gently through the reeds. The farmer closes his eyes. His breathing slows. Around him, his family sleeps peacefully. The village sleeps peacefully. The valley sleeps peacefully. Only the timeless Nile remains awake, flowing quietly beneath the stars, carrying with it the soft echoes of countless ordinary lives, until those echoes become part of the river itself. And as the cool desert breeze drifts across the calm water, through the reeds, over the fields, and gently into the quiet homes along its banks, the ancient world grows softer, and softer, until there is only the peaceful rhythm of the river, the whisper of the wind, and the comforting silence of another night beside the eternal Nile.